Okay, so this is section 5.2. Now, just a reminder that you are to take notes as we go through this, so make sure that you are writing down anything we talk about, especially the examples. That's the thing. I want you to work through those examples that I have in here as we do this. All right, so we're talking about fractions, decimals, and percents as we go through this. And let's take a look, first of all, at this chart at the top of the page. This is page 210, and it talks about pets in households, and it gives you examples of all these, and says a dog, 39% of the households have dogs, 34% have cats, 12% fish, 7% birds, and 5% other small animals. So let's talk about how do we switch this around. So if we've got 39%, and we want to say, how can we write that as a decimal? Well, let's think about it. Before we were talking about percents were part out of 100. You know, percent means part of 100. And so we could say 39% is the same as 39 out of 100. And we would just write this, don't reduce it down or anything, because we want it in terms of 100. And if we think about that, if we divide 39 by 100, anytime you divide by 100, it's like moving the decimal over 2 places. So what we would get is 0.39 for our decimal answer. So 39% written as a decimal is simply 0.39. Let's do another one now. But let's not worry about, we don't need probably this middle step here where we write it as a fraction. Just understand that we can take these out of 100. They're put over 100. So if we have 35% and we want to write it as a decimal, we need to understand that we simply move the decimal 2 places and we get rid of the decimal sign or the percent sign. So it becomes 0.35. So 0.35 is the same thing as saying 35%. Okay, let's do one more. Let's say we have 115%. Remember, we talked about it is possible to have over 100%. That's no big deal. If we want to convert this, though, decimal point right now is right there. Move it over 2 places, 1, 2, and we go between the 2 ones, and we would get 1.15 and remove the percent sign. So there's my answer. 1.15 is 115%. Now let's do a couple where we go the other way. Let's say that we have 0.2 and we want to convert that or write that as a percent. When we had percents and we went to decimals, we moved the decimal place 2 places to the left. When we go to percents, from a decimal, we're going to move the decimal place 2 places to the right. Now, there's nothing here, so we're going to put in a 0. And so this is going to become 20%. So 0.2 was 20%. I moved the decimal 2 places. 1, 2, added in a 0, got my 20%. Same thing if I have 1.66 and I want to convert that to a percent. You know, really, in a sense, what I'm doing is taking this times 100. Before we were dividing by 100. This time I'm now taking it times 100. And I'm going to, when I take anything times 100, it's moving the decimal place over 2 places, 166, and I need to make sure and write in the percent sign in order to get that correct. So that's pretty simple to convert between percents and decimals. Decimals, percents, we're just moving the decimal point 2 places depending on which way we're going. So let's do ones that are just a little bit harder. Let's say that we have fractions, and so if we have 3/8 as a fraction and we want to write this as a percent. Now there's 2 ways that you can do this, and I'll show you both ways. The first way is to simply say, well, 3/8, and I want to get it into something over 100. So that sounds a lot like a proportion. So I can set up a proportion just like this, and then simply do my normal things where I cross multiply these things, so I get 3 times 100 equals x times 8. So 8x equals 300. Divide both sides by 8. X equals 300 divided by 8. And now, at this point I could use a calculator. I could divide it into that, but it goes in 37.5 times. So my answer is not 37.5. My answer is 37.5%, because I wanted to write this as a percent. That is method 1. That's the proportion method. So proportion, and if you like proportions, then this is a good method to do that as. The other method is simply to turn it into a decimal. So we have 3/8. And if we have it as a decimal, then we know we just did changing decimals to percent, so those weren't too hard. So what we're going to do is divide bottom into top. Remember, we always go bottom into top, so we're going to say 8 goes into 3, and it goes in how many times? Well, it doesn't go in any times there, so I got to drop down a 0. 8 goes into 30. 3 times 8 is 24. 6 left over. 8 goes into there about 7 times. I get 56. 4 left over, drop down another 0. 8 goes into 45 times. And now I've got a decimal number. So I've got my decimal. That's not my answer yet. I now have to take it times 100, or I have to convert it into percent. So move the decimal over. I got 0.375. Move the decimal over 2 places. So I get 37.5%. And you can see, of course, I got the same answer. So you are welcome to use either method, whichever one you find easier to do or better to do. Let's do one more problem. Let's say we want to know what 2/3 is as a percent. Now remember, earlier in the year, I had you try and memorize a bunch of decimals, some common ones. If you had memorized this, if you still know this, then you can do this in your head. You can just write down the answer. But let's assume that you don't know it. And now we're going to cross multiply. So we're going to take the 2 times 100 and the 3 times x. So 200 equals 3x. Divide both sides by 3. We get x equals, goes in there 66, and it continues on, so it's 66.6 repeating. And depending on what we want, most of the time we would probably just leave it like that instead of writing maybe as a fraction or rounding off. So our final answer is going to be 66.6 repeating percent. Make sure you write the percent. That is important when you do that. Other method, of course, you got 2/3 and divide 3 into 2. Goes in 0 times, drop down to 0. 3 goes into there 6. 6 times 3 is 18. 2, oh look, it repeats. Okay, so we know that that's going to be 0.6 repeating. And then move the decimal. So we got 0.666, repeating. Move the decimal 2 places, I get 66.6 repeating percent. And so once again, I get the same answer, which is always good if you do that. All right, so your turn. I want you in your notebooks now to do A, B, C, and D. May not take you very long. Just hit pause and write out those problems at this point. Okay. So you're back. Hopefully you've got those all done. And if you got 0.8, remember you're moving the decimal 2 places, 1, 2, put in a 0, we get 80%. So that's A. For B, B was 0.564. Move the decimal 2 places to change percent, we get 56.4%. And if we do C, C is 3/16, and you could set it up either way. Let's do it as proportions. So x over 100, and I'm going to get 3 times 100. That's not written very well. Equals x times 16. 300 equals 16x divided by 16. 300 divided by 16. I'm not going to do the math. You can use a calculator if you want to for this one. You would get 18.75%. D, 1/9. Once again, if you remembered this one, this is one of the ones that I tried to have you remember. If you remember this one, it's pretty easy. If not, this one I would probably just divide. Let's do this one the other way. Divide 9 into 1. Doesn't go in any times. I've got add a 0. Goes in once. Put 9, 1 left over, and I just continue. It just becomes 0.1 repeating, or 11.1% after I move the decimal 2 places becomes 11.1%. So those are your 4 problems that you did there. Let's do one last thing. Let's take a look on page 212. And they talk another example here. They say about 3/20 of the land of the earth is covered by desert. So let's just get some of this information down. 3/20 is desert. North America is about 16% of the total land surface of the earth. So North America, we'll just abbreviate, is 16% of the earth. Okay, so 3/20 of the desert of the earth is desert. I guess we should put that up there. And is the area of the desert on the earth more or less than the area of North America? So what we need to do is either convert 3/20 into percent or convert 16% into fraction. Probably easier to convert 3/20 into a percent. So let's do that one. This one I like doing proportions anytime that this number here goes into 100 evenly. So 20 goes into 100 5 times. I like those because they're gonna work out pretty easily. So I get 3 times 100 equals 20 times x. So 300 equals 20x. Divide both sides by 20. So this cancels, and easy way to cancel that out. 30 divided by 2, 15. So we're talking about 15%. So what we know is the desert, 15% of the earth is desert, 16% of the earth is North America. So the question asks, which one of these are there more deserts on the earth, or is there more North America? And there's more land in North America than there are total deserts on the earth. So that is section 5.2, and that should complete our lesson for today.